You either use the internet for fun or you use the internet to grow. You're here to grow. Welcome to TRS Clips.
Grahas are basically graspers of consciousness. It is very important to understand that.
Do you want to name the Grahas?
Yeah, so if you speak in English, so Graha is not exactly the planet, let me tell you this way. So that's why Sun is also a Graha. Okay, so I'm not talking about astronomy here. Okay, it's from the Jyotish point of view. So the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and how much? Six. No? Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. Then Rahu and Ketu are also there. Okay, two of them. These do not have physical presence. Okay, so each of these Rahu and Ketu are two of the nodes. Nodes means, so the moon is traveling around the earth, right? So there is it's like it's a point in space in calculation where it changes its direction. Northern direction is Rahu, southern direction is Ketu. So it doesn't have a physical presence.
I think an easy way to understand that is think of the head and tail of a serpent.
Yeah. So that is big. So this is, I'm talking about the calculation part of it.
Sure.
Okay. And when we see the head and tail of a serpent plus Rahu is one of the most powerful grahas. Okay. In this age specifically, as the ages go, Rahu becomes more powerful. So Sun, for example, Sun is the first of the planets. So basically, Sun represents certain qualities. So one of the qualities could be Sun may represent the government. Sun represents father. Leadership. Fame. Fame comes from Sun. If Sun is positive, then it can give, it can cure from many diseases, including things like, for example, if there is certain people have patches on the skin and things like that. So there is some stories where certain people, so those were cured by worship of Sun, etc. So like that, Sun, but most importantly, Sun will give you a lot of fame if Sun is positive for an individual. Okay, there's a lot of fame. Karna used to be a worshipper of Surya. Okay,
but so when you're saying positive for an individual, you mean the combination of Sun with which house / Rashi?
Yeah, there is then the more complicated thing that comes, that when is a graha positive and when is a graha negative. Okay. In this, there are certain places where the graha will become more powerful and some places where the graha becomes weak. So simply speaking, Sun becomes very powerful when it is in Aries, Mesh, first house, okay, of the zodiac. And it becomes very weak when it is in Tula. Tula is Libra, which is 7th. Just opposite to that. Okay, it becomes very weak. So because of the strength of the graha, it will have its own power and behavior pattern will change.
Of the human being involved?
No.
Of the graha.
Of the graha. Okay. And I told you that what graha means grasper. So accordingly, when Sun is influencing an individual at a particular phase of time, say 3 years or 4 years, those properties it will transfer into the individual.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay.
That is how it grasps the consciousness.
That's why they
and makes you do things.
That's why they say things like, oh, your Sun is now in Gemini. That's why this kind of effect. Oh, now your Venus is in Aries, etc. I gotta pause you here, and I know that this is pissing off some viewers who already know about astrology, but I also gotta talk to like more basic viewers.
Yeah.
Autobiography of a Yogi has an entire chapter on astrology where they talk about how every object in the world has a kind of, you can think of it as an electromagnetic energy or a spiritual energy that it gives out. Like how light has a dual nature of like being a waveform as well as photons. So in the same way, everything, like say the planets have a solid nature, which is as the physical planet, and then they have an energy that they're giving out.
Correct.
You can think of it as in the same way that every big object has gravity, or every object in the world has gravity, but when an object is huge, it has more gravity. In the same way, when an object is huge, it has a deeper cosmic effect on a human being's life. And that object doesn't want to be negative or positive. It just is. And that's where this aspect of grahas comes in.
Correct.
Okay. Anything you want to mention?
No, not much. But more or less, these 9 grahas are the fundamentals of Jyotisha.
Okay. Now I think you should mention each one little bit.
Okay. So Sun is like that, as it say fame and things like that. On the other hand, to just give an example, so one of the other things on the negative side, Sun can also denote ego. Okay. Somebody with a very strong Sun may project a very strong ego or even misrepresented as being very arrogant. Because Sun is super confident. Okay. On the other hand, when Sun is weak, lacks confidence and maybe internally insecure. I have seen horoscopes like that. So basically, they will be, again, a graha is, to clarify, a graha is never independent in the sense that there are other aspects of it. It's like chemistry. Multiple grahas may be in the same house. Some graha may have something known as drishti, effect, sight. So each graha can also see the house that is 7 distance from it. Just opposite.
Opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some grahas have special drishtis. Okay, we'll go into that.
This is details of astrology.
These are all basics of astrology. It's not even details, but
okay, go on.
So Sun, it creates that sense of insecurity, can create an insecurity sense in the individual. And the thing is that, for example, if Sun is weak, they get affected by praise very easily, good or bad. If you praise them, they become very happy. Or if you criticize them a bit, they become very disturbed. Whereas when the graha is stronger, it is more stable. It is not, theek hai, praise kar le, koi baat nahi. Criticism also, it doesn't take that seriously. But it may project an image of ego or arrogance. It depends on the overall horoscope. Okay. At a very deep level, astrology also has its own levels. At a very deep spiritual level, Sun also represents the Atma inside an individual. It is the king of the solar system. The Atma is the king of your life. Like that.
Your soul.
At another level, Sun is Shiva. But it can also be Rama. Depends on the horoscope. Okay. So
what does that mean?
So these come in later on. So you have suppose there is an affliction to Sun in the horoscope I'm seeing, and I see that it needs to be rectified or some way it can be cured or something like that. So how do you do that? There are 3 ways in which you can do that. One is that you do certain activities related to that graha that makes the graha favorable towards you. Okay. So for example, some government agency or government related thing, you make some donations or you do some work. Sun is connected to the government. Sun becomes happy. But there is suppose some other kind of combination in the chart with respect to Sun. So I say that no, this is not enough. There you need the help of forces, higher forces. Okay. So how you need the help of Devatas. Devatas are higher than these grahas. But the grahas can map to certain Devatas partial energies to some degree. So depending again on the position of the Sun, I may say that worship Shiva or worship Bhairava or worship Lord Rama. Rama is of the solar dynasty, okay, depending on the position of the Sun. Or worship a specific Mahavidya.
Like a Devi.
Each graha can map to a lot of things. See, these 9 grahas will map to everything. If you know, it can map to everything. It is the capacity of the astrologer to find out that what exactly is the mapping happening. And this is not exactly a science. It's more like an art. Correctly find out. So a good astrologer must also have a certain degree of experience and intuition. Okay. After Sun, let's go to Moon. Perhaps the most important graha in the horoscope, if you ask me, more than even the Sun. Okay. Moon is your mind. Moon is your mother. Moon is water. Moon is milk. Okay. These things. Moon is food items also. Certain things. Various other list of things are there. Moon, the graha itself is something that fluctuates. So there is Purnima and then there is Amavasya. So exactly like the human mind. Today I'm happy. Tomorrow I'm very sad. Day after again I'm happy. Then I'm sad. So the moon is like that. Changing like that. So the moon becomes very powerful when exalted when it is in Taurus.
Exalted means what?
Exalted means maximum power.
Okay.
Vrishabha. And it becomes very weak when it is in Scorpio. Just 7 houses separate. Okay. A strong moon can indicate somebody who has a lot of emotional self-control and who has the capacity to enjoy even in stressful times. That inner stability, but not just a dry stability. Bliss, because it's liquid. Moon is water. So that sense of happiness and joy also is governed by moon.
Are you okay giving names of like celebrities or?
No.
Okay.
No individual charts I'll go into. But let's just say that, moon gives you that that feeling of contentment inside. A strong moon. Whereas a weak moon plus moon allows you to extract joy and enjoyment from a wide range of things if the moon is strong. So to give an example, a person with a very strong moon, even if he falls in the drain, he may not panic. Right now I can't change my circumstantial situation. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, उसमें भी मजा आ रहा है, ठीक है, आई एम फाइन, उतना कुछ नहीं, समय होगा तो देखा जाएगा. Moon is weak, the slightest amount of disturbance happens, oh my god, what the hell is happening, I can't take this. ठीक है. And being in so even more second step of analysis, so being Scorpio, being a sign, Scorpio is a very interesting sign. So it's governed by Mars, so there could be how does somebody react to a disturbance? One way of reacting is that you could internally curse yourself that, okay, things are very bad. Or you could just throw around a lot of disturbance to everybody around. I am disturbed, but I want to throw it happens to people. Okay, ये क्यों हुआ, वो क्यों हुआ, ऐसा क्यों हुआ, ऐसा क्यों हुआ. It doesn't matter whether the person you are telling is responsible or not. But more or less, you create that environmental disturbance can be created. Okay, now these get modified a lot because obviously a graha is never normally alone. There will always be some aspect or some other graha, something like that, and those will modify the characteristics. I'm just talking about a very pure graha condition, and now almost no chart has this, and this is important to mention because a lot of your listeners are going to say, oh, my moon is like this, but I'm not behaving like this, or I'm behaving like that, or etc. That's because there will be all other grahas. It's like chemistry, you add things and final product comes in something else. Jyotish is also like that. It's never going to be one graha alone. I'm just talking about the basic qualities.
Sure.
After moon, let's go to Mercury. Mercury is so moon, by the way, also connects to the divine mother, to the feminine. Okay. Depending on the position of the moon, it could be various characteristics of the Devi. Which form of Devi, whether it's Somya, mild form, whether it's aggressive form, whether it's Kali, whether it's Chamunda, whether it's Tara, position of the moon can govern these things. Okay. And Vishnu avatars also connect to them. By the way, like I said, sun is connected to Rama, moon is connected to Krishna. So Mercury is the graha, Buddha is the graha that is considered to be youthful. It's perpetually youthful. It's like a prince. If sun is the king and moon is the queen of the horoscope, then Buddha is the prince. He is eternally in the teenage or just cross teenage phase. He doesn't grow up beyond that. So he's very playful. He's extremely good in comedy. Okay. He has a remarkable memory. Buddha has to be strong for a person who knows multiple languages. Without that, you cannot learn languages. It's tremendous memory. Okay. He hears something, he remembers it. He may not understand it though. That's a different topic. That goes to different graha, that domain. But he will be very good with it. Certain positions he may be very good in communication. Communication things are governed by Buddha. And certain positions of Buddha can also make a person very good in yoga. And this is very strange, it may sound, certain combinations of Buddha can also represent things like abhichara or black magic. Okay. Buddha is fundamentally, as I said, it's a youthful graha. And also, by the way, Buddha also governs certain other aspects like people who suffer from whether it's impotency or things like that, or confusion regarding sexuality. These are all governed by Buddha. Okay, Buddha has this capacity. It's very playful. It's very playful graha, but also very powerful graha because, as I said, Buddha's blessing, if it's there on somebody, they are very good in remembering things. Extremely sharp memory will be there. They'll be very good with languages. They can learn subjects very fast. Things like that. They'll do it playfully. There's no stress. Just like that, they'll learn. So, but not, as I said, all these characteristics that I'm talking of the grahas, all of them will not manifest in an individual. it again, everything gets modified with the position. Where exactly is it and what other grahas are combining with it. Okay. So Buddha becomes very powerful when it is in Kanya Rashi, which is Virgo in English. Okay. And it becomes very weak when it is in Meena or Pisces. Okay. Kanya Rashi is, Buddha is the strongest.
All the positive traits of the Buddha come out, and if it's in Pisces, all the negative traits.
Negative, weaker traits, and there will be disturbances, various other things. See, Buddha is so important. Buddha is communication. Half the time when you have miscommunication, jhagda ho raha hai, ye ho raha hai, Buddha is playing some role or the other.
Or even all forms of growth actually happen with communication.
Yeah, communication is very important. For example, what you do as a communication is a significant part of it. So, Buddha is very important for anything related to communication. Also, Buddha is very important. Buddha's other thing is that if Buddha blesses an individual, you'll be very good in academics. So, studies and subjects and all that, you'll be very good. Often you'll find people who have done multiple PhDs and all that with certain combination of Buddha. Okay, not all, but certain combination. As I said, Buddha is that he's very youthful. He's young. That energy is there in Buddha. Buddha connects to Vishnu very strongly. Okay, Lord Vishnu. Position of Buddha will tell you which form of Vishnu. Buddha also connects to, among the Devi forms, connects to Tripur Sundari, Lalita Tripur Sundari. She is a Mahavidya. And Buddha can also connect to Vatuka Bhairava because he's somebody who's younger. So these are things related to Buddha. Let's go to the next, say Mars, Mangal. Mars is the warrior among the grahas. Mars represents that martial spirit. Mars represents the ability, aggression. Mars represents fighting ability. Mars represents fire. Okay. Mars is the general among the army.
Okay? Virat Kohli. Sure, he has a very strong Mangal.
All sportsmen who are into physical sports will have a strong Mars. It's impossible to be in physical sports, whether it's cricket, football or anything, without a strong Mars.
Or the military?
Military too. Police, military, etc. Okay. These are all governed by Mars, strong Mars. So Mars becomes very powerful when it is in Makar. Makar is Capricorn. And becomes very weak when it is in Cancer. Okay. Cancer is Karkat Rashi. Because it's governed by moon, so it's not particularly a very graha that that's emotional or things like that, too watery. Okay. Mars connects to certain deities. One of the first deity is Hanumanji. Okay. Then there is Kandha or Murugan, who's the general of the army. Okay. But Mars also connects to Narasimha of the Vishnu avatars. Mars also connects to Bagalamukhi among the Dasa Mahavidyas. Now,
which one?
Bagalamukhi Devi. Okay, with Dasa Mahavidyas. Which specific form it will connect to depends on the horoscope.
All these are warrior deities.
All these are warrior deities. Mars also connects to Chamunda. It's a very fierce form of the mother. But it depends on certain other combinations, not standalone. Okay. When Mars is strong in an individual, they are normally capable of not just physically strong, but they also, what I've seen is that there's a confidence in this physicality. Okay. They're very confident. And that also makes them pure Mars I'm talking about. So there is self-control also. But pure Mars is very rare. The moment Mars is touched by few other grahas, his behavior will change. For example, if Mars has any contact with Rahu, it becomes like a warlike condition. Yuddha yoga. Okay. Put them into a conflict. Bas, straight they'll go into it. Singular Mars will be very self-controlled. It will only enter if at all is needed. Just as much as it is needed to get result, it will come out. But Mars combined with other things will behave differently.
Is this related to Manglik?
Certain positions of Mars make an individual Manglik.
Is it true that when you marry a Manglik, it's bad for the partner and all these?
Yeah.
Okay, according to astrology.
Yeah. So, but there are ways to negate that also.
Do you want to address that later in the episode? Or
We'll just briefly touch upon it, but not too much detail. So basically, before I go to that, so Mars, when it becomes weak, it can have, first of all, there could be, Mars also represents blood, by the way. Okay, so there could be blood related problems, plus there will be a weak constitution. Okay, and again, when a graha is weak, it is fundamentally insecure. So that individual will have certain degree of insecurity with respect to his own physical strength. And that can manifest in very weird ways, by the way. Which means sometimes what happens is, if you're insecure about certain thing, to cover up your insecurity, you may try to be proactively more aggressive. So a stronger Mars will have more self-control because he's confident of his power. A weaker Mars, even at the slightest amount of disturbance, chalo marpit karte kuch, something like that, will try to behave in a way that is very, aggressive. It's basically because deep down there's an insecurity, so you have to kind of prove more to yourself subconsciously, no, I am very strong. That psychology works with the grahas through the individual. Okay. With Mars, we have this idea that it is very commonly called as Mangalik. Mangalik is basically certain combinations of Mars are present in the horoscope, whether they're in the 7th house, 8th house, couple of other years are there. So that causes a disturbance in the married life. Previously, it used to be believed that it will cause death to the spouse. Today, mostly divorce or separation. Okay, but there are rituals and pujas that can be done to pacify that. Or there are combinations. For example, normally what they do is that there's a horoscope matching that can be done, whether that other individual also has similar Mangalik doshas, so it kind of cancels it out to a degree. Okay, not fully, but to a degree. So basically, you'll still fight but stay together. So that kind of thing. And then there are cancellations of yogas also there in chart, which is another aspect. Just because a Mars is in a certain position, it's showing Mangalik. It may not show the result if there are some other combinations present. So like this. Okay. But Mars is so all things related to military, police, etc. is governed by Mars. And the deities that I mentioned, these are the ones who can control Mars. If it is weak, if it is negative, if it needs some other disturbances manifest in it, then we approach these deities and we worship them. Okay.
Like for example, Hanumanji gives you self-belief.
Yeah, Hanumanji. See, deities are more powerful than the grahas. Remember this always. So when you are approaching a devata for a specific graha-related problem, he can solve that problem. But if you approach the devata for spirituality, then he goes even deeper into spirituality. He will take you beyond. He can take you beyond any of the deities. Okay. One more thing is that Mars in a female horoscope can represent partner, boyfriend, things like that. Okay. Can represent partner, boyfriend. Now let's come to Venus. So Venus has this very interesting thing. Venus is also known as Kavya. Kavya means poetry. So Venus fundamentally gives you the ability, all that is artistic in the world is governed by Venus. Okay. Aesthetics is governed by Venus, whether it is wonderful aesthetics or weird aesthetics. Okay. Whether it is a classical painting or whether it is a very difficult modernistic or postmodernistic painting जो किसी को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, that also is Venus. But different positions of the Venus. It could be that the Venus is weaker, a weaker Venus, but other combinations are there. So a very famous painting, but you're not able to understand कि ये हो क्या रहा है. Whereas a classical painting could be a very classically placed, nicely placed Venus. Okay. So like that. So Venus governs, in general, it governs women. Venus governs things of beauty, whether the way you are dressing up, whether you're using a perfume and all that, all these are Venus. Jewelries, everything is Venus. Poetry is Venus. The ability to write poetry is Venus. Venus also governs Tantra Shastra.
I wonder who has a strong Venus. So.
No, there are other grahas also that govern, but Venus has one particular governing capacity of Tantra. And this comes from, Venus is among the grahas, Venus is one of the gurus, by the way. There are only 2 gurus in the grahas. Venus is one of them. And Venus comes from Shukracharya. We find the reference to Shukracharya many times in our scriptures. Shukracharya was one of the Rashis. Okay. And he was the guru of the Asuras and the Daityas. Okay. Shukracharya was born in the lineage of Bhrigu. Bhrigu was one of the Rashis. Bhrigu. And Shukracharya was a terrific worshipper of Shiva. It is Shukracharya who gave us the Mrityunjaya mantra. It is said that he went to Kashi, and for 5,000 years he worshipped Shiva in a normal way of Paddhati of worship, and nothing happened. Then he said, I'll do severe austerities. For 1,000 years he worshipped Shiva, but making sure that he only consumes the smoke from burned grains, nothing else, only smoke in your eyes, continuously for 1,000 years while chanting the mantra of Shiva, Sanskrit mantra. After 1,000 years, they say that there's an anecdotal story. The other Grahas and the other gods, the gods came to see, how is he able to do this much amount of sadhana? How is he able to do this much amount? So gods came and they were like, but they themselves cannot do this much. What Shukra is doing, just inhaling smoke. Can you imagine? Man, his almost eyes are blind, kind of, with smoke and all that, and is continuously worshipping. After 1,000 years, they tell Shiva that please give him whatever he wants. Stop this, because if he keeps doing that, he alone will control everything. Shiva appears before him and tells him, I'll teach you one thing. I'll teach you the Mrita Sanjivani Vidya, how to bring the dead back to life. Something that no one else has got. He gives him that. Shukra uses that then to revive the Asuras during the battle. So he is able to bring back all the divine beings and all that. So then the Pramathas or the Shivaganas, they come to Shiva and say that he's reviving all the Asuras back. All the wounds are going and there again. So how will we defeat them ever? Then Shiva tells Nandi, who is Shiva's greatest bhakta, does that go and catch him and bring him here. So he gets Shukra back. Shiva digests Shukra, takes him inside his body, eats. Inside the body of Shiva, he is seeing that all the 14 lokas are there, universes there, everything is there. Gods are there, asuras are there. Whatever is happening outside, everything is inside his body only. And in this, he's not able to come out of that state. Because they say that I think for hundreds of years he stayed inside the body of Shiva. And the Asuras obviously became weaker because he was not using the Vidya to revive them anymore. So the gods started winning. After that, finding no other excuse, no other way out, he was able to come out from the sexual organ of Shiva. Then Shiva told him that by this act you become like my son. And you will have mastery over certain aspects. So so he gets the name Shukra. Shukra, the word also means semen. Shukracharya. He has, Venus controls everything about sexuality. In the sense, normal sexuality. Everything. Whether a person, looking at the condition of Shukra, you can find out A to Z about a person's various things about his sexuality and things like that. Including even those aspects which are, for example, used in Tantra, some of the aspects where Maithuna is used in Tantra, whether it can be done on, whether an individual will be able to do it or not, depends on the Shukra.
Wow.
Shukra knows the Vidya to revive somebody. If Shukra is strong in a person, certain things, there are practices they can do by which, even if they may be aging, they still look young. It is the capacity of Shukra to give you that. Shukra is fundamentally passion. See, Moon and Shukra, both are likeness, but there is a difference. Both are feminine grahas, but there is a difference. Moon is that general bliss and happiness. बहुत मजा आ रहा है लाइफ में, सब ठीक है, इससे आगे नहीं जाना है, पीछे नहीं जाना, वह मजा आ रहा है, everything is fine. Shukra is passion. This is what he applies in the sadhana. He says that no, I have to get Shiva. उसके लिए like mad he does a sadhana. Everybody is stunned. How the hell is he able to do this? So much of penance, austerity. This is the capacity of Shukra. Without Shukra, it is very difficult to succeed in the world because you don't have passion for something. If you don't have passion, you are not going to put in that effort. And passion could be for anything. Passion could be for sadhana also.
And once passion's in something, it doesn't feel like effort.
Exactly. Then it is not work anymore. Anybody who has done something terrific will need to have some blessings of Shukra.
Venus will have to be in a good place in the chart.
Yes.
for their material growth.
Correct. Not just material. That's what. There are certain combinations. There's a particular combination of Venus, Saturn and Ketu present in the chart. It shows a tapasvi yoga. You are able to do tapasya, which means that you are able to do penances, hard penances. Okay. Because you like doing it. Once, as you said, once you start liking something, then it is not effort anymore. Then no one has to prod you to go to office or go to school or something like that. You on your own will do it. Okay. That is the blessing of Shukra. And it's very, very important in many things.
On a very low level, I know that if your Venus is in a good place, you are said to have a lot of sex in your life.
That is one way of looking at it. So basically, what happens is that two things. Venus does govern sex, but also it governs for a man, Venus also governs his wife or girlfriend or something like that. Whatever, his partner. Okay. Venus by itself is women. All women are governed by Venus. In fact, by looking at the position of Venus, you can make out even that what are the physical features and various other things.
Really?
A lot of things. Okay. So not just Venus, other grahas are there, but Venus is a key component of it.
Okay.
And so Venus connects to Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi. And also among the Mahavidyas, Venus connects to Kamalatmika as a Mahavidya. Okay, that's the Tantric form of Lakshmi. But again, a graha is never alone. So once it has influence of other grahas, its character and behavior changes. Venus, by the way, also controls things like films and all that. You can never be famous as a film actor or somebody who's well known until your Venus is well placed and connected to certain places in the horoscope.
Okay.
That visibility, that's the thing. Venus, that connection of a lot of people, okay, that kind of fame with respect to films and things like that, all are somehow governed by Venus. One of the artistic fields, media, for example, also Venus to a degree. Okay. After Venus, let's go to Jupiter. Okay. Jupiter is the guru of the Devatas. Okay. Jupiter is masculine in nature. Jupiter is guru in the traditional sense. He's heavy. Okay. There's a certain gravity and a weight in Jupiter. Somebody who's influenced by Jupiter, the moment they sit in a room, you will understand that Jupiter is strong. So they'll not joke around and all that. It's not intimidating kind of heavy, but you feel that, okay, this person knows a lot, or this person has a lot of depth in him. That is Jupiter. Okay. Venus, by the way, also governs jewels, diamond and all that. Those business you cannot enter. Jewelry business you cannot enter without Venus influence, especially gemstones and rare stones and rare materials and all that things. Now, Jupiter is the guru of the grahas. Okay. He teaches the devatas, not just the grahas. He teaches the gods how to fight, whatever other vidyas have to be taught, etc. He's that way. He represents the Vedas and the Vedanta. He is the traditional path. Okay, completely. Jyotish and all traditionally, all under his domain, his influence. Jupiter also represents wisdom. Mercury, I had mentioned, that has the ability to learn a lot of things. But you may learn a thing, whether you are digesting it or not, that governs Jupiter. Whether you are realizing it or not. Okay, that is Jupiter's domain. Jupiter represents gold. It represents a lot of wealth. It represents banking systems. So very often clean wealth, but it's very important. Jupiter is fundamentally ethical. It doesn't like non-ethical things because it's a guru of the grahas. It will never do any shortcut business. Ethics is very important. Okay. Jupiter also, weight is there. So there are certain combinations of Jupiter. If it's present, then people tend to put on weight. There's a certain heaviness. Heaviness in their aura, heaviness also physically can happen. Okay. Jupiter becomes very strong when it is placed in Cancer, Karkata Rashi, and it becomes very weak when it's placed in Capricorn. Okay. Just the opposite of Mars. Jupiter can connect to any graha, any deity for that matter. But certain placements, depending on placements, it can represent Shiva, or it can represent a very cosmic form of Vishnu. Okay, very large form of Vishnu. Jupiter can also represent a very cosmic form of Ganpati, very powerful form of Ganpati. So there are more details of it, which Stotra of Ganpati will connect to Jupiter in this form. And from the Tantric point of view, Jupiter represents Matara. Okay. So Jupiter has these characteristics. Jupiter's blessing on an individual means he'll be very deeply learned. So subjects like, I would say, for example, say physics. These are all governed by Jupiter. Or philosophy, 100% Jupiter. Without a strong Jupiter, that depth will not come. Okay. Jupiter has that they're very sincere. Jupiter doesn't like shortcuts and do numberi kaam nahi hoga Jupiter. Okay. It's very ethical, very sincere, hardworking. And Jupiter's blessing is very important to digest experiences. Correctly digest the experience. Spirituality, Jupiter plays a very important role. Whatever other grahas may be, they have their own role to play, but Jupiter plays a role in the sense that Jupiter puts you in the right path, no shortcuts, hardworking, and it helps you to finally expand and digest experiences. That's one of the key things about Jupiter. I already mentioned Matara links to Jupiter. Certain conditions of Jupiter, she has to be worshipped to bring the person out. On the negative side, Jupiter's another fundamental quality is that it expands. Jupiter likes expansion. Okay. A negative Jupiter can also bring in diseases, by the way, in an individual, like cancer and things like that. Sudden uncontrolled expansion of cells or something like that. Jupiter likes sweet things. A person's strong Jupiter, we can more or less say, will like sweet as a taste. Jupiter also, there are karakattvas of grahas. Karakatva means lordships. What does it control? There are two types of lordships of a graha, which is till now what I was telling you was the Naisargika karakatva, which means natural lordship. So Jupiter naturally lords gold. Jupiter naturally lords certain things. But in an horoscope, it may have some functional lordship also, which depends. Later we'll go into that. But so Jupiter, because of this, if Jupiter is afflicted, you may see diseases like sugar, blood sugar, and things like that. These are also governed. Hormonal problems are governed by Jupiter sometimes. Okay, some kind of hormonal imbalance or things like that. In a woman's horoscope, Jupiter may govern her husband. So you can understand the basic nature of the husband by looking at the position of the Jupiter. Okay, and general wealth and wisdom and all these things are there. So it's the Deva Guru. Then we come to Saturn.
Shani.
The
most interesting one for a lot of viewers.
Shani is fundamentally a graha of discipline and taskmaster. It likes hard work. It likes people who do hard work. A positive Shani means they will be very hardworking. Negative Shani means they will be extremely lazy. Okay. Lazy, indolent, aaj karte, kal karte, parso karte, aise types. Okay. And the more lazy you become, the more your Shani is going to cause you trouble. Simplest, I'm saying, of course, it all gets modified based on various other factors, but this is number one. So hard work and discipline is what Shani likes. Number two, Shani likes masses. Lower level, not the elites. Shani dislikes elite. See, Shani is actually son of Surya.
The son of the sun.
Yeah, in the mythological lores that we get, he is a son of Surya. Okay. But he dislikes Surya. Completely dislikes him. Shani just dislikes sun. Okay. Because sun can project the ego, arrogance and confidence. Shani likes humility. Just the opposite. The more humble one is. So Shani's idea is that you be humble and do hard work.
Then why does Shani have a negative connotation?
That is because certain positions of Saturn, if it is placed. So these are the two things that are told. But fundamentally, people may neither be humble nor hardworking. Okay. So then Shani also, among other things, it rules things like something that is very long lasting. Okay, so if Shani gives you a trouble, it is going to last for a very long time. Okay, for example, what I said about discipline and all that, this is the fundamental nature of the graha. But if Shani is negative, okay, and is troublesome, then it can cause a lot of trouble because it is slow also. Okay, and also another thing with Shani is that it likes justice. Okay, if there is something wrong or some injustice that has happened or being done, something, it likes dishing out that justice to that individual during its period. That can be very painful. Okay. Shani worships Bhairava and Kali. These are the two go-to graha devatas who can control Shani to an extent. But also, here let me say that some of the most fixed karmas, we are speaking of Drida karmas, are also governed by certain positions of Saturn. Saturn in that sense is, many people will say that Saturn is a karmic graha. Basically, what it means is that Saturn likes giving this justice business. So you have taken shortcuts XYZ, somewhere, Saturn comes in and he gives you full hisab. So he's like that credit card bill that comes in. First you enjoy, then the bill will come. So that is what he is, and that is where that's why people get scared, because obviously somewhere or the other, if you have taken shortcuts or some things like that, when Saturn comes in, it's going to make you pay. And there's no escaping it. It's not that simple to escape Saturn so easily. It's very... It itself is humble. See, escaping means what? Suppose sun or the other grahas are weak or something like that. You do some pujas or japas or something like that for the grahas. That's basically a way of placating the graha. To placate Shani is very difficult because it's very humble. It is not looking for your praises too much.
And that's why you say the Hanuman Chalisa.
Hanuman Chalisa can help, but it has to be significant amount of Hanuman Chalisa.
Okay.
Hanumanji has the ability to control the 9 grahas, by the way. Other deities also have. Hanuman Chalisa is very popular, so that's why we use that. Achha, Saturn also controls various beings of the lower realms. So positions of Saturn can tell you whether XYZ individual will have contact with these kind of entities or not. Spirits also sometimes can be governed by Saturn. Saturn also indicates... so Saturn indicates generally the worker class. Okay. One of the very interesting remedies of Saturn, I know a friend who's uses this to tell people. For example, Saturn is difficult in somebody's horoscope. So tell him that in your house, on a specific day, you yourself clean the toilets. That's something, a very menial kind of work. Precisely what Saturn likes. No, don't let the servant or somebody else do it. You do it. You don't like it, so what? That's the attitude that if you have, then Saturn is going to turn slightly favorable towards you. It hates ego, it hates arrogance, it hates lack of humility, it hates lack of discipline. But unfortunately, the whole world suffers from these things a lot. And Saturn also gives in his justice. He's very justice oriented in that sense. By the way, Saturn can give in certain combinations exceptional amount of wealth. So much wealth that no other graha can give. In fact, you can take it this way that perhaps some of the greatest, the richest people, some of them, would likely to have certain combinations of Saturn, certain places. When Saturn gives wealth, it's like unthinkable amount of wealth will come. But there is a catch involved. Saturn is one of the... Now, there are grahas of other combinations also. So, there are certain grahas which are more krura. Krura means more... say, let's say freers or something. Not gentle. Okay, Saturn is one of the krura grahas. Sun is also krura graha, by the way. Saturn is a krura graha. So, Saturn's combination... If a wealth comes from Saturn, there are... it is not a natural domain of Saturn. Natural domain of Saturn is hard work and discipline. Being an unnatural domain, you can be certain that if a horoscope combination shows that this person made a lot of money with respect to Saturn, there will always be shortcuts involved.
Corruption.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not a natural domain. Okay. Saturn also represents imprisonment and things like that.
Like the ring of Saturn is like a test. You're caged up for some time.
Yeah.
And if you pass that
yes,
test,
yes,
you're rewarded.
Yes. Sort of. So, and
Is it true that at the end of your Saturn phase, there's a reward always?
no, not always. It's a popular saying. Sometimes it is true, but sometimes it may not be true.
Okay.
Again, all of it depends on the position of Saturn. Okay, and as I mentioned, there are certain combinations of Saturn which, if present, there's no cure possible for that. If whatever is the affliction, nothing, no amount of upasana of any deity, no amount of going to anywhere else is going to bring any relief. Just have to go through that. Because that is the lesson that nature is going to teach you. Saturn is very good in teaching lessons. To keep certain degree of control over Saturn. Saturn also, by the way, controls oil and things like that. These are all governed by Saturn. People often ask, I'll do Hanuman Chalisa once. Once में तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, 10,000 साल में भी कुछ नहीं होगा. So do, depending on the amount of trouble you are in, you decide ki how much you have to do. Okay, so that it should be, of the same level as the intensity of difficulty that you are facing. Then only there is a chance that you will have some relief from it. Okay. Now we go to Rahu. So Rahu is basically an asura. The story goes that Rahu, after the churning of the ocean, cosmic ocean was done, then there was Amrita that came out. Okay, many things came out, of which one of them was Amrita. Amrita makes you immortal. So Rahu, an asura, disguises himself and goes. The gods have taken the Amrita and they're having. He goes there. He says that I want their Amrita also. So he disguises himself and he sits and he takes a bit of that Amrita in his mouth. Okay. Immediately there is a Vishnu there. He understands that okay, this is not a god. This is an asura. So he uses his Sudarshan and cuts off his head. Okay. So the Amrita comes into his mouth, doesn't go into the body. So two parts come out. One is the head and one is the tail. So the head is Rahu of the Asura and the tail is Ketu, body, tail or body, whatever. Okay. But because he had Amrita, so he becomes immortal. Okay. Rahu is a head without a body. Rahu has its own interesting nature. The primary natures of Rahu is that it is a master in creating illusions. Absolute master. Okay. Number one. Number two is that Rahu tries to eat everything. Okay. Grasp and eat. But it can't digest everything because it doesn't have a body. So Rahu influence means you will try to, in that specific area or something, try to spread very fast. But whether you are able to integrate that properly, that you don't know. In fact, very often, that is precisely what the illusion is. Very fast expansion in certain ways or very fast expansion only, for lack of better words. But whether that is being integrated or not, if it is not being integrated, then eventually that is going to suddenly burst. That is one of the problems with Rahu. Okay. Rahu also governs spirits. Okay. Because it doesn't have a physical presence. Rahu is extremely powerful because all these domains, illusions, this, that, etc., these are all things in the mind. Imagination. A certain combination of Rahu can give tremendous imagination. Okay. Rahu is also, in a way, like the physical domain is there, and then there is the occult domain. He is the doorway between the physical and the occult. He can take you to that realm, both in a positive and a negative sense. Rahu is extremely brave. But this bravery is different from that of Mars. Mars is like full-scale warfare. Rahu is like a bomb blast. Even a moment before that, you don't know what is going to happen. Suddenly it will burst and everything is, you're like shocked out of your mind. Okay. Rahu has another ability. It can read through conspiracies. No other graha can. If there is some all the conspiracy theories in the world are Rahu's doing. He loves creating conspiracies, whether they're real or not. And it also gives you the ability to see through a conspiracy. Any individual who is working in a spy agency or something like this, you can't do that work until your Rahu is strong. It's impossible. Or politics, speculating, equations being made. This will work, that will work. All that is Rahu's domain. Internet, full scale Rahu.
All YouTubers.
This age is Rahu, by the way. We call it Kali Yuga. This is the age when Rahu is most powerful. So Rahu is not always bad, by the way. I'm not saying that Rahu is bad. Technology is entirely Rahu. Today you have 50, 60 years ago, people used to think that, what is going to be a computer, large computer, maybe like the size of a room or something. Today that whole processing power is there in your telephone. Okay, it's becoming small, it's becoming more powerful. Things are changing very fast. Anything that changes fast is Rahu's domain. Quickly it is going to shift things. Okay, Rahu grasps attention very quickly, which is why the phone is the attention grabber in this today's age. Everybody, take the phone away, you are like like a fish out of water. Okay, so these things Rahu can control. On the positive side, Rahu gives a lot of courage, very strong courage. Rahu also, as I mentioned, can influence a person into black magic or these things, both being a victim of it or somebody who's doing it. Okay. Plus, the world of spirits and all that, Rahu has full connection to it. A certain combination of grahas can indicate that somebody may be affected by spirits. Rahu has control over it. Rahu also controls animals, not animals rather. It's like insects and all that. Cockroaches, spiders, this, that. All these are governed by Rahus. Okay. Rahu, to control Rahu, there are few deities who are very good in controlling Rahu. Primary of them is Ma Durga. Primary of them. Then also Bhairava is very good in controlling Rahu. Extremely potent in controlling Rahu. Okay. Rahu can lead to addictions, by the way. Certain combinations with Rahu, more or less you can be certain that they'll have addiction, and very difficult to get out of addiction. Certain combinations of Rahu are there, which is present. So these two other deities are also there in the Tantric way, in the Dasmahavidya. Devi Chinnamasta is the one who controls Rahu. Okay, Chinnamasta is extremely aggressive. But this judgment is to be correctly applied when to worship which deity for relief. Okay, if whatever is there. Acha, Rahu has the ability to eclipse the sun and the moon. Sun and moon are the most fundamental grahas in the horoscope, because sun, I told you, is deeper level is soul, and moon is the mind. Your soul and mind are the most important things. Rahu can cause eclipse to that. And that is going to cause certain behavioral changes in that individual. Even when we have eclipses outside, by the way, you will see there are two things there. Eclipse is a very peculiar time. One is that when an eclipse is happening, temples are closed. Okay. Normal dharma, normal sense of right and wrong, what is to be done and what is to be not done, dharma and adharma, has a certain flow. Okay. Whenever Rahu grasps the sun and the moon, it causes a tremendous change in the energy, in the atmospheric energy, spiritual energy of the place where that eclipse is happening, even on the world at a subtle level, but more specifically at the place where the eclipse is happening. So normal dharma gets disturbed. That is one of the reasons why temples are closed. Traditionally, there's certain sutak that is followed, which means that you don't eat food for a certain period of time until the eclipse gets over. Then you take a bath and things like that. You don't see an eclipse directly. And I'm not talking about the scientific aspect and all that, but spiritually, they have their own meaning why these are not done. And this is good to follow. Okay. But that period is also extremely good for spiritual practice. What you can achieve through years of practice in normal time, you can achieve in 1 or 2 hours during a grahan. Because Rahu is like that veil between the world you see and the world that you cannot see.
Explosive growth.
Explosive. He can lift that veil also. He can cause that veil also. And in fact, there are certain, outside India, there are certain places where Rahu worship is very common.
Outside India?
Yeah. Certain places, Rahu worship, Rahu tattoos and Rahu pujas are done specifically. But the power is used more for material purposes, some positive, some negative.
What is it called in English?
I don't know what it's called, but they call it Rahu only. Okay. Rahu's ability to see through conspiracy is very useful. Correctly placed, Rahu can also help you dominate your enemies. Because even before they make a move, you know what they're trying to do. He can see that thing. Okay. Rahu is also your link to your subconscious mind. All the other grahas are functioning in your conscious. Rahu is where the subconscious business starts in. Okay. Good or bad, whatever, but either way. And even Hanumanji also can be, certain sadhanas are there, Hanumanji, which can be done to control Rahu. Another thing is that Rahu can show in a horoscope things like we were discussing Sarpa dosha and all that. Placement of Rahu determines that. Rahu also controls Nagas and Sarpas and all that. Okay. Snakes and all are Rahus. So after Rahu, let's go to Ketu. Ketu is the body of Rahu without the head. Ketu governs, again like Rahu, it governs all spirits, particularly spirits, but also high level of spirituality. Very high level. See, Jupiter, as I was mentioning, is more like
wisdom and philosophy.
Yes, but this is mysticism, mystical experiences, very strange experiences, but also spirits. Okay, both of them are very much there, and it also governs a certain degree of detachment. Correctly placed, Ketu will govern detachment. Correctly placed, Ketu can also show whether a person will attain to very high states like nirvana and all these things. Certain, but that is, in my opinion, that judgment should not be done, because very high, when you talk about that level of spirituality, they actually go beyond grahas. Okay, it's not. It's what happens is that after a person has achieved something, then people try to retrofit and say ki iske liye hua, uske liye hua. But actually, that level of spirituality is beyond grahas. Okay. Ketu is also very brave. Okay, but Ketu is a bit mindless. So Ketu is irrational completely because it doesn't have a head. So wherever Ketu is placed, that is the area where you will work mostly either out of intuition or whatever organic feeling you have. Thinking too much is not going to help wherever the Ketu is placed in the horoscope. So Ketu requires a head. One of the best deities to worship to control Ketu is Ganpati. Okay, because Ganpati himself has his head replaced by worshipping Ganpati is very good to bring Ketu under some degree of control, and feeding fishes and things like that. They are also governed by Ketu. Okay. So Ketu's placement tells you about spirits and about detachment also. Detachment means it can be very strong degree of detachment, in the sense if suppose the house of spouse has Ketu, then it may show that the marriage, in the marriage there is a certain degree of, could be a disconnect between the husband and wife. Maybe same house they're staying, but there is no connection properly. It's like two roommates, that's it, kind of. So those things, it could be in other areas also. So these are the three fundamental themes of Ketu. One is that it could be spirits or it could be high level of spirituality. Achha, Ketu also governs very high level of mathematical ability, by the way. Very high level. I'm not talking ordinary level. This is like international best mathematicians of the world. That is very typically Ketu has this ability. Or very high caliber chess players. Not just normal chess players. This is like super grandmasters. Okay, where they're looking at the most complicated positions. Because after some point, Ketu is the graha of intuition. Most important graha of intuition, because it doesn't think. The mind is not there. Your intuition gets blocked because you have a rational mind. Okay, but rational mind has its uses, because until the intuition is purified and correctly built on, it will guide you wrongly, because you can get information from all sorts of places. So Ketu governs these things, and among deities, one of the, as I mentioned, the first deity to worship is Ganpati, for that matter. There are certain Ganesh Rudrakshas which, with energized with mantras, they can help an individual during Ketu troubles. If there are very significant amount of problems, a certain placement of Ketu. In Tantra, the Mahavidya known as Dhumavati to control Ketu. She is one of the most peculiar Mahavidyas. Okay, Ketu also controls things like smoke, particular. So Rahu and Ketu's differences, to give an example, suppose somebody is afflicted by a disease. If Rahu is the cause of the disease, you go to a doctor, the doctor will tell you, हाँ तो ठीक हो जाएगा, कोई बात नहीं, this is what the is. You go to Dr. B, he will say, it's very simple, no problem, but he will give you different diagnosis. You go to 10 different places, all of them will give you full confidence कि एकदम 100% will get cured, but 10 different diagnoses. If Ketu is governing the disease, 110 doctors also will not find out what is the root cause of the problem. So it's like there's smokiness about it. It's not, the vision is not there, clarity is not there. And Rahu is the pretense of clarity. ज़्यादा ही दिख रहा है, जितना है उससे ज़्यादा दिख रहा है.
Rahu's illusion, Ketu's mystery.
Sort of, in a way, briefly saying that is right. And both of them get involved in yogas. Obviously, they're always 7 houses apart. Rahu and Ketu will always be 7 houses apart. Okay, and they get involved in the Grahan and all these things, etc. So Ketu fundamentally is, in a way, both intuition, spirituality, spirits, and detachment. These things are governed by Ketu.
Okay, that's it. That's the
9 grahas.
New clips released at the same time that a podcast releases. This is TRS Clips. Make sure you subscribe.